Today what we're talking about, the HGH, growth hormone.
This is the TRT and Hormone Optimization YouTube channel. And if you want to learn all about the science-based information on this topic, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell, and you'll be on your way.
Welcome to the video, everyone. I have the honor to have Vigorous Steve as a guest today. If you don't know who that is, check out his channel. It's the same name as labeled under his face there. Vigorous Steve. It's a great bodybuilder with all bodybuilder related questions, not only PEDs, but of course training, food, diet, and so on. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you. So on my channel, I try to talk about everything because, you know, the funny thing is as soon as you start talking about hormones, you only get hormone questions. So I try to keep it a little bit varied and talk about nutrition, supplementation, training, you know, lifestyle, and a little bit different mindset that goes into bodybuilding, as well as the financial aspect, which nobody wants to talk about. But I do have videos about financials because that's my background, you know.
Great. Yeah. Go there and check his channel out. Today we're talking about hormones as well. On my channel, it's more about anti-aging TRT hormone optimization. Steve is more into the hardcore bodybuilding, PEDs there, but there's also a kind of gray zone. And the gray zone is today what we're talking about, the HGH, growth hormone, because low dose HGH can also have tons of anti-aging health benefits. So let's talk about that, Steve. Let's start with that. What would be the benefits of low-dose HGH for anti-aging?
Well, there's many benefits, and it depends on your age, you know, how much benefits you're getting. So let's say you're a little bit younger, and you already want to start anti-aging. When let's say you're 26 years old, for example, you can actually afford growth hormone. 1 unit when you're 26 is not going to feel the same as 1 unit when you're 50. Because when you're 26, you still produce a decent amount of growth hormone naturally. And that 1 unit on top is not going to be a dramatic difference compared to the 1 unit that you produce when you're 50, or maybe half a unit per day. And then supplementing another 1 unit on top is going to be a noticeable and dramatic difference. Now, usually the 26-year-old guys, they're all over the place because of the age. I know it was only 10 years ago for me. And a 50-year-old guy is going to be a little bit more focused, a little bit more, you know, focused on work, about income, about financials, and a little bit more regimented. And that's usually where the benefits really comes from. If you're very regimented, you know, with your diet and your training and your nutrition, and you just got everything in place to, you know, promote anti-aging for you, whether that's through supplements or training or correct diet, adding 1 unit of growth hormone to that protocol is very, very beneficial. And then most people will automatically notice a little bit of fat loss because growth hormone causes lipolysis, right? So the hormone-sensitive lipase goes up, causing a little bit of lipolysis from the body fat stores. So, you know, without changing anything to their diet, given that they're eating reasonably healthy and clean, you know, prepare their own meals, by adding 1 unit of growth hormone, regardless of what time it is, they will experience fat loss. Now, depending on when they take it, they can experience more or less fat loss. So let's say you take growth hormone before activity, whether that's cardio or training or nighttime activities, you're burning calories then as well. 1 unit of growth hormone and the lipolysis that it causes allows you to burn that fat off more readily. And otherwise, if you take growth hormone when you sit down, some of the lipolysis is just going to redistribute all over your body. So you might notice that your face or your lower abs or your lower back gets leaner, whereas your arms or your legs might stay the same amount of body fat because you're redistributing that fat because you're not doing any activity to burn it off. So you really, you know, if you really want to optimize it, what I always say is if you want to improve the fat loss, take growth hormone before activity, because then you have an opportunity to burn the fat from the lipolysis away through activity. Now, the downside is because you're training, especially during intense workouts with hypertrophy training, you know, for bodybuilding or MMA or powerlifting or whatever, any form of very active activity, you've got growth hormone, high dosages of growth hormone in your bloodstream, which can then attach to the heart. Now you're sending a hypertrophy response to your muscles, but also causing hypertrophy of the heart. And this is where it gets tricky, because when you're older, the last thing you don't want is to increase your heart size. So I'll take myself as an example, being 36 years old, being on growth hormone for about 6 years, 8 years in total, I have heart enlargement. But I'm not sure if I had heart enlargement before I started taking growth hormone, because I've been bodybuilding for 20 years. And, athlete's heart is very common amongst bodybuilders because we lift so intensely and spend hours and hours and hours in the gym every week. So that contributes as well. So unfortunately for myself, I don't have a before and after because I didn't started checking my hearts, until I was already on hormones. I was drug free for 12 years almost, bodybuilder. So I started checking my heart, to see, because you're curious and we're all in the health game here. So I checked my heart and the doctor said, yeah, you have symmetrical heart enlargement. You have no coronary artery plaque buildup. So it's all fine, but your heart is larger than normal. And I could probably attribute that to taking growth hormone pre-workouts, because when I looked at the pathways years ago, how growth hormone works in the lipolysis, I decided, okay, growth hormone, in my opinion, it's the best time to take it before activity. So I lost a decent amount of fat and perhaps caused a little bit of heart enlargement. Yeah, so it's you have to measure it out. So if you don't want that to happen, and you still want the fat loss and the IGF-1 conversion, the best time might be to take it before bed, around 9 o'clock in the evening. So what happens is, when you take growth hormone, you get an IGF-1 production, right, in the liver. And then you get another nighttime pulse of growth hormone, which produces again more IGF-1. Now that nighttime growth hormone is going to be reduced a little bit because your IGF-1 levels are higher. And then, by having less growth hormone release, you have less IGF-1 production. But you'll see on blood work that if you still take your growth hormone before bed, you'll have way higher IGF-1 levels throughout the day compared to taking growth hormone in the morning or before workout or after the workout or any other time during the day. Now, with anti-aging, you don't want that because high IGF-1 levels, of course, have been linked to aging. But it also improves recovery. So again, you'll have to... It's, with performance enhancing, it's always like, I know both sides of the story. I know both effects and both downsides. And then it's up to you to make a decision, which of the negative effects are outweigh the positive, or, the positive effects outweigh the negative. So it's, and the financial aspect is always a contributing factor because, real growth hormone is not cheap. Mm-hmm. It's not cheap, especially if you get it through a prescription.
But it's illegal here, of course.
Yeah, well, the weird thing is in Europe, it's produced like Norditropin, Genotropin, it's produced in Norway and Germany, but it's very difficult to source in Europe. And most of it is exported in the black market. And then it ends up here in Thailand or America or, wherever. Yeah, like Norditropin is all over the world. They also have factories in different places. So you can buy it in Egypt, for example, or is it Genotropin or Norditropin? I think one of those brands, you can buy it in Egypt in the pharmacy without a prescription. Yeah, it's so weird. The rules are different everywhere, and it makes it very confusing. Like for me, for example, I can go to the pharmacy here in Thailand and buy blood pressure medication, diuretics, this and that. But if I want to buy ephedrine, which is legal in the States under Bromcade, it's completely illegal. Because they make yaba with it, which is a methamphetamine drug. So they combine coffee and ephedrine and then cook it into some sort of street drug, and it's a huge addiction problem. So they outlawed it completely. Yeah. And then if you go to the States, you can just buy it in the pharmacies. That's why it makes it so hard. Yeah, it makes it so hard because when you talk with people all over the world, everybody has different rules and regulations on what is available. Yeah,
it's very strict here in Belgium.
Yeah, in Holland as well, and it's one of the reasons why I left. Too many rules. Too many rules.
I see that it is recommended very often to inject growth hormone when you're fasted on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
But what about guys like me that take a casein shake before going to bed?
Yeah, so, growth hormone can reduce your insulin sensitivity through several pathways. I think it's highly overrated what they state on the internet. It's like a little bit of fear mongering, and they try to make you scared that you're going to turn into a diabetic. That's not the case, especially if you keep your dosages reasonably low, between 1, 2 units, maybe 3 units for one injection per day. So, if you're taking 2 units of growth hormone every 4 hours, okay, you're going to get some insulin resistance for sure, because now you're constantly stimulating lipolysis. Your triglycerides are going up. Your fat in your bloodstream is higher, which reduces insulin sensitivity. There's an insulin receptor. Man, what is it called? There's one insulin receptor that it responds to growth hormone, but it controls the insulin receptor and the GLUT4 receptor. So when growth hormone levels are high, this special receptor downregulates insulin and GLUT4. So if your growth hormone levels are chronically elevated, your insulin receptors and GLUT4 receptors are chronically downregulated, and now this blood sugar stays in the bloodstream, and then it spills over into the body fat. So now you've got high triglycerides, high fat in the blood, and high blood sugar in the blood. So again, it's very dose dependent. So let's say you take 1 unit of growth hormone, maybe 2 units of growth hormone before bed. Why don't you check your blood sugar levels for a week on the casein protein? Because the difference between casein protein and whey protein is that casein protein digests very slowly, right? It digests very slow over hours. That's why it's a slow digesting protein. It's basically sweet potato. And whey protein digests very fast, very high bioavailability. And the downside of that is that you get a large amount of gluconeogenesis in the liver. So the whey protein converts to glucose, increasing your blood sugar levels. And that's why if you want to take growth hormone with a protein, it's better to take a casein protein, which digests over several hours and doesn't change your blood sugar levels that much, compared to taking growth hormone post-workout, when you take a whey protein and simple carbohydrates, increasing your blood sugar levels, while the growth hormone is making you insulin resistant. And that's why a lot of guys, when they do that protocol, they notice that they get very watery, because the blood sugar stays, or the sugar stays in the blood and then spills over to the body fat stores, because it's not allowed to enter the muscle cells. But when you do that in the evening, especially if you trained a little bit later in the day, your insulin sensitivity should stay fine, and your blood sugar shouldn't elevate too much, because the casein protein, it doesn't lead to so much gluconeogenesis. So that's on paper, but you would want to confirm that with a blood sugar reading. So why don't you check your blood sugar readings in the evening, and when you wake up, you keep a log, see where you're at. And if you're in range, okay, then you add in 1 unit of growth hormone, you keep that log again and see if there's any elevation in blood sugar levels. And if it doesn't go up, then you're fine.
Yeah, thanks. Why would we inject growth hormone early in the morning? You're fasted as well, and then you have a natural peak in the night and maybe an extra peak in the morning.
Yeah, so that's also a very good time to take it. Growth hormone, there's several ways to take it, right? So if you want to take it in the morning, okay, usually according to your circadian rhythm, your cortisol levels peak in the morning, and then they come down again, and then they peak around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and then they come down again. So that's your circadian rhythm. So you can actually reduce this cortisol peak by taking growth hormone. Now, some guys, they're a little bit too excited, and they start waking up bodybuilders are crazy. So they're a little bit too excited, and they say, okay, my cortisol levels, they peak at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock. So I want my growth hormone to be as saturated as possible. So I'll take my growth hormone at 4, then it peaks at 6 and suppresses my cortisol levels. Yeah. Again, if you're a competitive bodybuilder, okay, I understand. But if you're just a recreational guy looking for anti-aging and stuff, the best time to reduce the possible IGF-1 conversion, because you want to keep that somewhat suppressed, would be in the morning. And then you do it a couple minutes of cardio. So you get your growth hormone, you get your coffee, get a little bit of incentive to do cardio. You walk for 30 minutes, whether that's the dog or you play a little bit of tennis or cricket, or whatever you prefer. You do some activity, not moderate activity, so you don't stimulate your heart rate too much, so you don't cause any heart enlargement possibly. And then you have your breakfast. And now the activity has depleted a little bit of blood sugar, right? It increased GLUT4 and insulin sensitivity, so you don't have to worry about any negative impacts on blood sugar levels when you do have a breakfast. And if you really want to optimize it, you take a breakfast consisting only of protein and fats, because now you still don't get any insulin release, right? So your growth hormone stays relatively high. You still produce a little bit of IGF-1, and then by avoiding simple sugars for your breakfast, it's basically like a diet hack, because you reduce the amount of insulin in your bloodstream for the longest possible time. So some people do that with intermittent fasting. Some people do that with a ketogenic diet. But you can also hack your way through a little bit, and by just avoiding carbs for breakfast, now you have the lowest amount of insulin released in the morning. And then by the time you have your second meal, okay, you probably need a little bit of carbs to stay focused. And then you just add your carbohydrates of whatever source you prefer to digest.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, so there's many ways. And if you're really worried about the blood sugar levels, I wouldn't take metformin. Yeah, okay, it reduces IGF-1 levels, but the problem is it also increases liver enzymes. So I would look into something like a berberine. Yeah, because it's a medication, right? Metformin is a medication. And, berberine has been shown for milligram, I think it's just as effective. It doesn't reduce IGF-1 that much. So again, you have to outweigh which effect you want the most, but it does increase the insulin sensitivity just the same. So 500 milligrams of metformin compared to 500 milligrams of berberine, you get the same amount of insulin sensitivity.
So there's no need for insulin at 2 units of growth hormone, sure?
No.
Metformin was one of my questions, indeed.
Yeah.
Metformin also have tons of anti-aging benefits.
Right.
Prolong life, even.
Yeah, so it does prolong life, and reducing the IGF-1, of course, reduces cell proliferation. So this is again a trade-off of the growth hormone, because you cause cell proliferation, so the division of cells, and every time you divide the cells, your DNA divides, shortening the telomeres. Right? Yeah, and every time it divides, you get shorter and shorter telomeres until the body starts digging into the DNA itself, and that's how you age. Mm-hmm. So by keeping your IGF-1 levels low, when you're taking growth hormone, you reduce the cell division and the shortening of the telomeres, but you do want some of the cell division in your skin, because that's where you get the youthful appearance from. So there's always a trade-off, and in the end, basically taking a few things moderately. So 1 unit or 2 units of growth hormone in moderation, and maybe a 500 milligram metformin extended release overnight instead of the fast acting one. So it just, modulates your insulin sensitivity and all the health benefits that it has overnight, and not too much gastrointestinal upset, because that still happens with people, right? So an extended release metformin 500 milligrams before bed, and a growth hormone 1 to 2 units before fasted cardio, that might be the best approach. But this is coming from a 36-year-old that hasn't tried it into his 50s yet, because I still need to wait 14 years to get to that point.
Yeah. I'm 46 in a few days, so I'm a bit further in life.
Yeah. So, but you haven't tried it yet, right?
No, I haven't tried it yet. But
okay, so
it would
hopefully
be great if it was legal here in Belgium.
Yeah, so maybe in 6 months, 1 year, you figured out how to get it prescribed, and then we can have this conversation again, and maybe we have a more youthful skin in the meantime.
Yeah. Well.
Before we continue, if you appreciate the content we bring to this channel, check out the Amazon links in the description of this video. These are the links to the products we use, going from supplements, protein powder, pre, post, intra-workout, anti-aging cream, sunscreen, needles and syringes to inject, and so on. If you'd like to purchase one of those products, please use the direct link so that it will earn us a few cents as a tip, and you'll be guided directly to the products we recommend. Thanks in advance.
So with the growth hormone, I mean, a lot of people ask me, what is the minimal effective dose? And I just tell them, listen, if it's pharmaceutical grade, 1 unit is more than enough. But the trick is getting pharmaceutical grade.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Chinese, generics on the market, and all the online sources, they sell mostly Chinese generics. And the good thing right now, because of the coronavirus, the Chinese generics are a little bit easier to transport. So if you're going to get around and you're going to take growth hormone without a prescription, and you're going to have to make a choice: am I going without a prescription and illegal, order it online, or I'm going to find a way to get a prescription and get it locally legal? It depends on the audience and which decision they want to make. Mm-hmm. If you get it locally legal, that's great. You don't have to worry about transport, because the pharmaceutical industry transports it correctly for you. But right now with COVID, shipping is super slow. So if you're going to buy something online, it's probably better to get Chinese generics than buying pre-mixed Norditropin or, the genotropins, which you have to mix yourself, because you never know what happens with the temperature. And if it arrives and the temperature has fluctuated a lot, because it's still a protein, right? So it's a peptide protein, which can degrade when it goes high temperature, low temperature, high temperature, low temperature. And what happens is you buy it from a warehouse, wherever, it goes to the packaging department, cold air conditioning temperature, then sits in a warehouse, high temperature, and then it goes into the plane, cold temperature. And then the same thing, warehouse, high temperature, and then shipping to your house, cold temperature again. So you get at least 5 temperature fluctuations, and this could degrade the quality of the growth hormone. That's why it's always so difficult to find quality, because you never know what happened during the transport. And maybe when they shipped it, it was good quality, but by the time it arrived to your doorstep, if you bought online, the quality or the potency has been reduced by 50%.
One last question. Does it have to be cycled? Can you use it anti-aging doses for life?
So, I approach this from a bodybuilder perspective. So we don't really cycle off unless we go completely off cycle. And that means we don't take the steroids and we don't take the growth hormone, because they work synergistically for the sake of muscle mass. Now, what I've done with most of my clients that are a little bit older, so let's say over 40, over 50 years old, they're working, they're financially secure, they don't cycle off either. They just 1 unit per day, maybe 1.5, maybe 2 units. The maximum they take is 2 units, not for financial reasons, but they don't notice any more benefits beyond that dose. Because, as you get higher in growth hormone and the cell proliferation and the anabolism and the recovery, et cetera, it still needs a little bit of anabolics to be more synergistic. So I always go by a self-imposed rule of 250 milligrams of anabolics for every unit of growth hormone. Mm-hmm. So if you're on 2 units of growth hormone, to get the most effect, in regards to muscle mass, you'll need 500 milligrams of anabolics. And 3 units of growth hormone, 750 milligrams of anabolics. Now that's like bodybuilding territory. So I know a couple bodybuilders that are a little bit crazy. They take 8 units of growth hormone, but only 1,000 milligrams of anabolics. So now they're wasting 4 units of growth hormone because they don't have enough synergy in that sense. And then I know other guys that take 1,000 milligrams of anabolics and 1 unit of growth hormone. They could probably reduce the anabolics to 500 and add another unit to 2 units of growth hormone and get the best amount of synergy. So for normal people who are not looking to be as big as possible, 1 unit per day, and you keep that away from your nighttime pulse. So there's no suppression of your nighttime pulse, and then you should probably be able to run it indefinitely. Mm-hmm. I never see a weekend to cycle off. Now you'll find on the internet the 5 days on, 2 days off protocol. And this is a very old protocol that was popularized on the forums. So the reason why it was designed was for budget purposes, because people train 5 days a week and they have 2 rest days. So they take growth hormone. The whole philosophy is, okay, I want to be as anabolic and recover the best I can on the days that I train. So I take it 5 days a week because I train 5 days a week. And then the other 2 days I take off. And then some guys design it from Monday to Friday. So Monday to Friday, take the growth hormone, and then Saturday, Sunday off. And then somehow in the internet, it got translated, that little message that circulates through class. And by the time it gets back to you, it's completely different. So now when people say, it's for the downregulation of the growth hormone receptor, and otherwise you don't pulse, it's not true. It's just for budget purposes. That's why it was designed. And you can feel free to try it. So if you're on a budget and you only have 5 units to play with, take it on days that you do activity.
I talked to other guests on my channel in videos about HGH shortly. And some of them say when you're getting older, they prefer still secretagogues. But I saw a video that you said when you're getting older, your body is not able to put out that much growth hormone anymore on secretagogues. So you prefer the GH itself.
Yeah, the real GH. So when you're younger, so some of my younger clients are not financially secure. But they could produce a significant amount of growth hormone with secretagogues. So if they go on MK677 or GHRP2 or 6 or ipamorelin, cimarelin, or whatever morelin is popular nowadays, yeah, there's so many. So those guys, I would tell them, okay, you can't afford a pharmaceutical growth hormone. Why don't you try a pharmaceutical or a local dispensary with a secretagogue? Okay, they get great results. Now, you try the same protocol with older guys. Their results are nothing exciting, that's for what I see with my clients, So maybe there's guys out there that can still produce a decent amount of growth hormone. And everybody can look at the reference ranges for age. So you look at the IGF-1 and the growth hormone, the serum growth hormone and serum IGF-1. Look at the reference ranges. Every 10 years, those ranges go down and lower and lower and lower. That's your natural production. It just gets lower and lower and lower. So you can stimulate it with secretagogues, but how much can you actually produce by yourself when you're age? This is, we're trying to biohack here, but you can still only produce that much. You'll notice as you age that you can only digest certain foods anymore. When you're young, you can eat cake and donuts and ice cream and all that stuff, and then you turn a little bit older, and the cake and ice cream and donuts just sits in your stomach and it makes you feel horrible. So your body changes with age, and the growth hormone production unfortunately goes down as well. So I would recommend the older guys who are hopefully more in a better financial situation just to buy the real growth hormone, and you'll either have to order that online or find some sort of way to get it prescribed. And when you do have access to it, yeah, most people will never go off again. Mm. I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, growth hormone was a horrible experience." No.
And it's safe, liver, cholesterol, and so on, probably too at those doses.
Yeah, if you only do 1 or 2 units, the only thing you will see is that your triglycerides go up and your blood sugar levels go up. Because again, when you release body fat levels, you got to remember in the body fat. So you have a body fat that's a glycerol backbone, and you have 3 triglycerides. This is the fat, but the glycerol backbone is actually carbohydrates, and it goes into the liver. It gets converted into blood sugar. So even if you're on a ketogenic diet with no dietary carb intake, by releasing body fat, your blood sugar levels will go up because the glycerol backbone of the body fat will get converted into blood sugar. So you'll still need to manage your diet, and you'll see with guys that are a little bit obese and sedentary, and that don't have so much, good blood work results, and they go on growth hormone because, they want to anti-age, they want to lose body fat, and their blood work gets worse. Their LDL goes up because now the triglycerides have to be contained within the LDL, which is a lipoprotein carrier. So it tries to increase the LDL particles to capture some of the cholesterol that is being released. So if you're in a poor healthy state, growth hormone is not for you. But if you're anti-aging actively by exercising, eating correctly, taking some of the supplementation, I don't see anything but benefits. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the financial burden, that's not a benefit, but it will be worth it. Sounds like a salesperson now for growth hormone. I have no stock in any of the companies, just a disclaimer.
One last thing on that point, Steve. If it's difficult to get real growth hormone, or too costly or illegal in the country. I see that a lot of these peptide sites that sell peptides, research chemicals for research and not human use, they sell these fragments of growth hormone. Are those a good alternative?
No, the problem is I've never seen anybody get good results from that. And I've tried some HGH frag 734, one of the frag 9, I don't know, I can't even remember. And nothing happened besides losing money. And I've tried a lot of peptides in my time because I wanted to figure out if they had some sort of benefit. And the only peptides which I know work, melanotan 2 for tan, and the side effect is erections, but also nausea. So if you can stomach the nausea, the erection is, very welcome. TB500 and BPC 157 for the healing properties and lowering of inflammation systemically and locally, depending on the side of the injections. And GHRP6. But I only use that with the younger guys. So that's a growth hormone secretagogue. And the younger guys, that want to grow, because GHRP6 makes you hungry through the ghrelin stimulation of the stomach. So it increases growth hormone levels, increases ghrelin, It makes you very, very hungry. So if you want to put on size, you're 18 years old, 20 years old, and you're a full-time bodybuilder, and you want to eat a mountain of food, but you can't really stomach it, GHRP6 is a welcome addition. And, maybe when you're a little bit older, you can put the GHRP2 in there, which doesn't make you as hungry, but doesn't increase growth hormone levels as much. But the problem is all these peptide companies, it's all from China. And last year, or actually this year, they put in the new rules that all these peptides and chemicals and molecules and steroids, performance enhancing drugs, even recreational drugs that we're producing over there, they're all outlawed. It's all banned. Mm-hmm. So now there's a huge dry spell on quality peptides, and all these peptide companies, they have a batch, they have a shed somewhere or, a warehouse, and the popular sellers are all gone and they're left with the unpopular sellers. Mm-hmm. But all these vials just have stickers on them. And those stickers are easily replaced. So it's maybe GHRP6 and they put ipamorelin in there, or it's melanotan-2 and they put GHRP6 on there. There's no regulation in this market. And that's why I always tell people, just please stick with pharmaceutical grade, because you never know what you're going to get with underground labs. And it's you're playing Russian roulette basically. Yeah. It's it's like going for your car, exactly what gasoline you take, and you go to the gas station and they give you gasohol, something completely different than benzene, and you start driving away and you wonder, why is my car not going anywhere? But that's the underground market. You never know what you're going to get. So getting a prescription is the best way, and the screedagogues is basically Russian roulette. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you bite the bullet. And that's why I don't touch it anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for covering this anti-aging by growth hormone so well. Thank you so much.
Happy to help. Happy to help. Ja, natuurlijk. Je kan gewoon Nederlands praten als je dat wil.
Hey, and now do this next. Click on one of these thumbnails to learn a ton more about TRT and hormone optimization.